Okay, the first thing we need to do is apply an adhesive to our roof card. You can certainly use white glue, but there's a neater, quicker way, and it's by using this 3M transfer tape. You can apply the tape by placing the backing onto the card and then peeling away the backing and leaving the adhesive behind. Be sure to rub down the backing very well to get the adhesive onto the card, and then trim off any excess with a knife. Now we need to set up a jig for our roofing paper. We want to cut each strip the same size, so we're going to measure off a scale 30 inches and then use the jig to cut multiple strips. We've marked it on both sides of our cutting mat, so we have a full width of the mat to cut our strips. Then use the marks and cut each strip, and cut as many as you need. Now with a knife or a razor blade, you can lift away the backing to reveal the adhesive surface on the card. And now you can begin to lay each strip down, and what we're going to do is start with one edge and make it flush with the edge. And we'll cut these strips in random lengths so they appear as if they were applied the way a real roof is applied. And we're just butting the edges up against each other. We're not overlapping them. As you lay down each strip, make sure the seams don't line up with each other. They should be staggered and kind of random. So cut different lengths for different sizes. And continue to cover the entire roof card this way. Now cut the excess off so you could reuse the strips further down on the roof. Once the entire roof is covered, you can cut off the excess strips with a knife so every edge is flush. Now we want to kill the flatness of this gray paper, and we could do that by dry brushing on a lighter gray, and it'll give it a bit of variety and it'll look a little faded. So just apply a very small amount of paint. It's a very subtle effect, so at first you might not see anything, and that's fine. That's what you want. This is just a very, very light layer. Now with a fine point black pen or a Sharpie, we're going to trace over every seam of the roofing paper. And this is going to represent small tar lines that would cover the seams of the roofing. You don't have to make them perfect, they're usually not, so if you go in and out a little bit and make little globs along the way, that's fine too. Okay, now we need to weather the surface a little bit more and add some more layers of depth with our chalk powders. So we're going to apply a light gray color first in different areas and just give it an overall brushing. And if you ever do too much, you can always bring it back with a lighter color. So don't be afraid of putting on too much. So then we're going to reach for our darker gray and do the same thing. Put it on in some different areas, and then just brush it overall over the entire surface. And that's what this weathering is all about. It's this buildup of layers that gives it this depth and richness to make it look more realistic. Okay, now we're going to use 91% alcohol and brush it over all the seams we've just created with the pen. And what the alcohol is going to do is let the marker bleed a little bit and create sort of another faded effect that looks very good. But it's also very subtle, so you might not notice it at first until you get the alcohol on there pretty good. Now we found this small roof access shed in our bin of detail parts, so we're going to glue this on the roof so there's some access to the roof. And we need to seal the edges with some tar, which we can make with some dark gray paint and white glue. And then with a small brush, just apply it to the edges and cover the seams where it touches the roof. Now we're going to add a plastic chimney detail, and we need to create some mortar, so we're going to push this lightweight spackle compound into the joint lines, and you can see how quickly it makes a mortar effect. Once you have it all into the grooves, you can brush it away with a brush and smooth away any rough stuff. And then just take some black weathering powder and dust the edges so it looks blackened from the soot coming from the chimney. We've added 4 small pads. These would be concrete pads, and they're going to support 2 steel beams on this roof here. And what that will do is protect the roof from vibrations from the air conditioning unit that we're going to put on the beams. The beams we've made out of plastic with small pads at the ends, which also helps with vibration. Glue the beams down to the pads, and then glue the unit to the beams. Now we can glue our chimney detail to the roof. Just use a little bit of glue and glue it where you want it. And we also have this round vent, and we're going to glue that in as well. Once they're in place, we'll need to add the tar seams just as we did with the roof access shed. So with a small brush, apply your tar mixture to the edges of the details. Now we're going to add some rust to the steel beams. We're using our light colored rust powder, and we're just going to brush it around the pads where the rust would fall down. And do this on all sides of the unit. Now we can add some rust to our metal vent as well. Just brush it around the edges and at the base of the vent. Now if the chalk powder seems too strong to you, you can blend it in a little bit further with some alcohol. Just brush the alcohol directly on top of the chalk. Once the alcohol dries, it'll appear faded. For the chimney, we can add some white chalk powder, and this can represent the mineral deposits that leach out of bricks over time. Just small little white streaks will do the trick. Okay, you could leave the roof as is, and that's fine, but we tend to like our roofs to look like they've been outside for years and years under all kinds of weather. So we're going to start again with our weathering powders, and we're going to start again with light colors using the light gray first, and then we'll add the darker gray next. And at this point, don't be afraid of how much you're putting on. The more the better. Now we're using a wide fan brush, but any wide straight brush will do as well. Now this is the kind of thing that you have to keep doing until it looks right. So every now and then, pause for a second, look back, and look at your results and see where you're at. And then from there you can decide whether you want to do more or less. Okay, now we're going to apply some more of the brown chalk, the darker color. And this time we're not going to brush it all in. We're going to leave some of it so it's still dusty on the roof surface. And then we're going to take our 91% alcohol and apply it to the entire surface as it is with the dusty chalk sitting there. So don't be afraid to let the alcohol puddle up. Whatever you put on there is going to evaporate fairly quickly, but the end result will be this mottled, faded roof look. And once that's dry, you can add some real puddles so it looks as if it rained recently by brushing on some clear gloss medium, just in a few small patches. And once your roof weathering is done, you could add some scraps of junk or whatever you see fit. We're adding just some scraps of scale 2x4s and 2x6s.